what is the purpose of developing this rainbow body? Saraswati would like to give through me a teaching on developing your rainbow body, your diamond rainbow body. When we work with the 7 rainbow rays and we consciously master the qualities that each one represents, with their virtues, their divine essences, and all that they represent in our lives, we move into that initiation where we then can create our diamond rainbow body. And Buddhists have known of this for centuries, because when you ascend, there is the manifestation of your rainbow body in the atmosphere. I remember when my mother ascended, the day she ascended, there was a beautiful rainbow in Livingston, Montana. And you may have noticed that when different people make their ascension, you see a rainbow. So this is a manifestation of their rainbow body, which is also their body of first cause, or the causal body, which is also the virtue body. So your rainbow body is composed of all of the beautiful virtues that you have expressed in all of your lifetimes, both in this dimension, Earth, and possibly other worlds where you may have incarnated and evolved. In fact, most of us didn't originate here on Earth. We came from other star systems, planets, whatever. And so most of us are volunteers, having come to help awaken mankind, enlighten them, illumine them toward their self-realization of their oneness with God. So what is the purpose of developing this rainbow body? Well, it is to glorify God. Because what is the most glorious thing that we see in the heavens? The rainbow. It is so beautiful. After a storm, after a rain, it is a symbol of hope, of course, from the Bible, yet it's much more than that. It is the manifestation of the glory of God as the light passes through the crystal of these little droplets of water in the atmosphere and create this amazing focus for us to consider, to revel in, to appreciate, and to glorify God. And when you reach that state of beingness where you have mastered what you came to Earth to accomplish, both in your mission, the vision that you have had for lifetimes, and what God has envisioned happening through you, the glory of the Lord dawns upon you, and this amazing alchemical, heavenly sign appears, showing that yes, indeed, you have fulfilled everything that you came to Earth to accomplish, and you have now earned the ascension and the light. So the rainbow body is built, in a sense, built or fabricated or fashioned lifetime after lifetime as you express God's virtues lovingly, as you master the ego and let go of the ego and embrace the divine id, which is your divine identity, which is your God presence, the source of everything within you. And the letting go of the lesser self is a key for embracing your Buddha nature and ultimately manifesting your rainbow body, because we're still often struggling a little bit with aspects of the ego, the not self, that trip us up and engage through us to remain tethered to this physical form, whereas the rainbow body is beyond form. I mean, it forms a beautiful rainbow in the sky, yet it's not in a physical form. It is a spiritual, dynamic representation of something beyond form. Color is formless. Spirit is formless. When we enter into true spirituality, we enter into the formless state of our divine essence, So our essence is our soul. Our soul is evolving, yet the soul doesn't have a form. It is, as spirit is, formless. Yet the rainbow body does, in a sense, have a type of form, but it is divine form. Whether it's a complete circle, and you may have seen a rainbow, a complete rainbow, rather than just the bow, the entire circle around the sun. Has anybody seen that around the sun? It does happen, and it's magnificent. It's beautiful. So really, the rainbow body is more than just a rainbow. It's actually a complete spherical or circular manifestation. When you ascend, it is a complete spherical rainbow, so to speak. So it's not just a bow, an arc, part of a circle. It's the entire circle. So really, we could call it, beyond the rainbow body, we could call it the causal body, because it is a complete circle or spherical. So how do we develop that? Well, meditation by meditation, prayer by prayer, service to others continuously, givingness, a transcendence that comes through sacrificial giving at times, where we let go of our own needs and serve others' needs, and we go beyond the constraints of our karma by moving into the center point of being, where there is no karma, because we're in first cause. So at the very center of the circle, there's no reactivity to anything, because you are in causality. So the fastest way to dissolve and transmute your karma is to go into the causal state of union with God, where there's no outer manifestation of things that you react to. You are in causality. It's easier said than done, because we live in this three-dimensional world in our physical body. Yet when you choose consciously to master reactivity, it frees you, right? It frees you to live, in a sense, in eternality, in that beautiful state of the singularity of God, the singularity of God, the center point of all that is. So where is that center point? Well, it's right within your heart. And that blazing, beautiful threefold flame of love, wisdom, and power, or love, wisdom, and faith, burns brightly in the hearts of those who are working on developing the rainbow body. And once the threefold flame is balanced, it begins to spin and accelerate and grow. And at a certain point, when the threefold flame does that, then it manifests the resurrection light, which is a mother of pearl coloration and beautiful representation, like the swirling energies of mother of pearl. And then eventually that's transmuted into the ascension fire, where it's pure white light, or I even see it as crystalline light. So we can, within the heart center, refer to it as the diamond rainbow body, or the diamond causal body, if you would, or the diamond virtue body. It's all the same thing. And you develop it through, especially through love, through wisdom, and through faith. Through love, wisdom, and faith, all in balance. When you have the balance of love, wisdom, and faith, then that is really the point of the acceleration of the development of the rainbow body. So does anybody have a question about this that you'd like to ask Saraswati, or anything that isn't clear to you about this process? Yes.
Is there a point where, instead of leaving a rainbow halo, one can transmute one's physical body when they pass?
Okay, so the question from Samson is there a point where, instead of manifesting just in the rainbow body physically, it can be transmuted into...
The body turns into light.
The body turns into light, yeah. Well, if you've balanced 100% of your karma, you can, with permission, manifest a physical ascension. It's rare, yet there have been people that have been translated, so to speak, like Enoch was translated and walked with God and was not. So he was no longer in a physical temple, he was pure spirit. So the key is to balance 100% of your karma and then receive the dispensation to ascend physically, where your whole body becomes light. So the transfiguration is like the step right before that, where you become all light. So when Jesus was transfigured on the mount, it says his body became, it was like shining, like this glory and this sheen, shining like the sun, basically. So you may have witnessed saints that shine with a great auric field of pure white light. They are about as close to that, what you're referring to, as anybody. And I don't think we should be too freaked out about our physical body dying. Everybody dies in one sense, because then you live in another dimension, a higher dimension. So if you work toward that, praise God, maybe you'll be one of the few that have evolved on the earth to actually translate your physical body into pure spirit. But you have to balance 100% of your karma. And that's pretty rare these days. Most people pass on, and they can, if you have 51% or more, you can ascend and then balance the rest from the ascended state. And that was a dispensation given to mankind, I think, in the early part of the 20th century, or in that time period. So why was that dispensation given? Because some people would go past the 51%, but then they'd slip back. So the masters, discussed this in the cosmic councils and said, well, let's allow them to balance the remaining portion of their karma from the ascended state, so long as they're free. They have more light than they have darkness. So you balance more than 50% of your karma. It's called, there's a term for that. I think it's called the, I'll have to think. The what?
Turya?
Well, maybe. There's a term the Ascended Masters used when this dispensation was granted, and it'll come to me later. I can't think of it right now. So it's good to work toward that. There's no sense in not working toward that. And the purer you become, the more radiant you become, the more holy you become, and then the light just starts really glowing in your aura to the point where some people, even if they're not clairvoyant, can kind of see that light around you. And this is why the greatest saints, people could actually see the physical light around them because they were so pure and holy. So those are the people that, some of the saints that have levitated, been able to levitate. That's like the beginnings of the ascension right there. So if you start levitating, you're getting close, I guess, Have you ever, many of us have had dreams of flying, right? Probably all of us. And I remember one dream where I was actually levitating, and that was different. It was different than flying. It was just, levitating like, in the room and stuff like that. But when you're flying, you're really levitating too. So it's pretty cool.
So I've gone partially see-through before, and my friend had documented photographic evidence of it, but I can still feel the karma that's remaining. So I don't want to ask for me and be selfish, but just in general, like what the steps are when you begin to manifest those steps to continue. Is it just the same prayers, or are there subtleties with the energy to progress?
Well, we have a book on the Ascension. Have you read it?
Not yet.
Okay. So we have 5 books that related to the A's, which are Alchemy 1 and 2, the Angels book, the Ascension book, and the Aura book. The Ascension book has the 33 steps that must be mastered to ascend. So when you get to the point that you're talking about, you're in the last 5, basically 5 steps. So that's pretty cool. So the goal is to maintain that state of grace in your aura and in your energy field, your biofield, where there's a constant flow. So when you feel the radiation in your aura and your chakras, where there's no lowering of that, into more mortality states, where it's a constant flow of it's like those images we have of, let's say you have a dipolar, like a magnet, and how they can actually see the tracings, like
The toric field lines.
Right. So it's like when you feel that flow around you continuously, and there's no dilution of it, no repression of it, that's when you're about ready to go. Because the key, how many people are able to do that though, where they're just walking in the light, and you can feel and experience that light just in a continuous flow. Very few people, because we're living in this mundane world, and it's easy to get affected by entropy of this world, right?
The way the masters put it to me when I was channeling was that it was attachments. Like I would proceed to the edge and then localize love, as opposed to love that kind of dispensates to everything equally, was what was holding me back. And that's like the remaining karma is made of these specific devotions that are meant to be universal devotions.
Yeah, just the little attachments, and we all have them. They're little iron filings that that we haven't completely released. So when those are gone, no more attachments. I mean, that's why the Buddha said, the Four Noble Truths talk about attachments or desire. The desires are attachments. So we can consider what our attachments are to form and to the world, and graciously and gently let them go. And it doesn't mean that we're not involved in living our life to the fullest, or to our purpose. We do. In fact, the interesting dynamic is to be a very practical spiritual being on the earth. In other words, earning income, to live, not being a burden on others to provide for you, because I know people that are so spaced out that they're a burden on other people, and they're always wanting for other people to support them. Is that really the initiatic path? I don't believe so. So you have to be very careful that you are in the mode of your true spirituality, which is practical, very practical. So some spiritual people get caught up in this whole frame of reference where they're not attached, but then they're a burden on others. And that's something to really think about and resolve, because I think true spirituality is practicality too. The masters are very practical. So I would, for all of us to consider. I mean, I went through a phase where I just didn't want to learn how to drive a car because I didn't want to pollute the earth. And my dad said, "You are taking driver's ed. You are taking driver's ed in high school because I'm not going to pay for it later when you finally get real and realize you're going to be driving." So I took driver's ed as a junior, and then lo and behold, right after I got my license, I drove from Chicago out to Garberville, California, and back with this lady, not a girlfriend, but an older woman that I was going to live with because my parents were going to move to Spain, and I wanted to graduate from high school. So here I drive over 2,000 miles right after I got my license, so I had to release that attachment to non-polluting, So we have all kinds of attachment to this or that. And the more we do the deep dive into our psychology, which is one of the requirements of the Ascension, is resolving our psychology, we can see very clearly what our attachments are. And it's a process, and it's an ongoing process. And I know, I've been reading a book on Khalil Gibran, and I tell you, that guy had a lot of issues. People think he was some great guy, releasing the prophet and everything. He had a lot of problems. So he's come back and he's dealing with all those things, So, so anyway, our sense of who we are is not always true. Until we can release all those things that are not real and embrace what is truly real, and then live our harmonious, practical life where we are ascending in spirals. But at every spiral, we learn something new, and we harmonize with the cosmos, and then we're truly free. But if we are in the mode of being a burden on any person, are we really free? No, because we're burdening somebody else, and then they're not as free as they could be. So it's a very interesting dynamic. And I've seen it in the lives of many, many people. And I observe it, with a kind of a smile. And I realize that practicality is spirituality. So do the things that you have to do so that you can live truly freely beyond being attached to non-attachment. Does that make sense? Being attached to non-attachment is still attachment. In other words, being attached to being free when you're really not free is something to consider. So it's just something, that I think all of us have dealt with in one life or another. And now that we're coming to the conclusion of all of our lifetimes, the subtle things are the most important. The very subtle little attachments that God's going to test us over and over again until we say, okay, I'm going to release that. I was so concerned about, gaining weight here. And Elmorian said one time, David, get over it. Because if I'm too attached to my body with a little extra poundage or whatever, that's an attachment. Yes, I should do the things that are proper with my diet and everything, but being over-attached to diet, how we look, this and that, all of us have little things to consider. So let's rise higher beyond attachment to non-attachment. It's kind of a Zen thing, right? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. The thing that the Saraswati says is that everything happens naturally, beautifully and naturally, when we lead a natural life. And so consider how to lead a natural life, one with nature, involved in nature as much as we can, like the Essenes, because we're an Aquarian Essene community. The Heart Center is an Aquarian Essene community. So the Essenes were so connected to nature, native peoples connected to nature. We've lost a lot of that in this civilization, which is not a true solar civilization yet. We're moving toward it, but we have all these things we've done to the earth. We need to reconcile and get back to nature and the Edenic state of harmony and peace. And then I think we can walk the earth, barefoot whenever possible, like the Essenes did, and like Anastasia does. You read the Anastasia books. That gal is one of the highest attained people on the earth. If you haven't read the Ringing Cedars books, Anastasia, what an amazing creature who is beyond, I think she was probably beyond attachment because she ended up having a child with this Vladimir Megre. And she was so holy and pure, and yet for some reason that connection happened and they had 2 children. And so you have to even be attached to non-attachment to the point where God may call you to do something that you're not normally ready and willing to do because you think that spirituality is number one over everything. And yet you may be called to be a nurse or to serve people in the inner city or do something magical, and it will move you into a new dimension. I was told that, I was thinking, well, I plan on making my ascension after this life. I said, well, how would you like to come back in China and help liberate, millions from the communist system? Because those people are not free. So, I may be coming back, and if that's God's will, I'll do it. It's kind of like, I've said this before, some of you have heard this, but it's like, you can't be attached even to the ascension. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, God, what do you desire for me to do? And then, if you come back, so what's one more lifetime? When you've had hundreds and maybe thousands, is it going to be a problem? Not if you're connected with Source and you've surrendered to God's will. So it's kind of interesting teaching that flew out of this question. Flew. What's the past tense of flow? Flowed? Okay. I like flew better. Okay. Any other questions about the rainbow body?
I just have one more question about attachment.
Okay, sure.
What about attachment to kids and family members?
Attachment to kids and family members.
And then wanting to be in nature and going hiking and doing all that, working outside and stuff, is that an attachment to nature?
Okay, can we be even attached to nature, going on walks, being, doing stuff? Well, it's about consciousness. So it's not, I don't think there's a problem when spirit within you moves you to do something, to be of benefit to life, to be of service to others, to be caring for your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren. I mean, yes, it's about your consciousness and your motive as you're doing things. If your motive is pure, your heart is in the right place, and you do things to glorify God within self and other and everywhere, then you can do anything that you're moved to do, because the purpose of what you're doing within what you do is to glorify God and to bring love and joy to the world. So as long as you're bringing love and joy to life and you're serving others, so what she's saying is you can be attached in a sense to goodness and godness. And that's the one attachment that's okay. Okay? So being attached to God, I mean, that's what religion means, is to bind us to God. And now religions don't always do that, but they're supposed to, right? So if we're bound to God, then that's a good thing. That's the one attachment that's acceptable. So
attachment or knowing who we truly are?
Well, it's knowing who we truly are, but it's being united. Let's say instead of attached, it's united with God. But that's the divine attachment, if you do want to call it that. Being united with God and your spirit, your soul with spirit. That's the one thing that's okay. Because you're not doing things for the ego. You're doing things for the divine. Does that make sense?
It makes great sense.
Yeah. So you can be I know people that are so overly into being runners, and doing this, exercising, to the point of it seems like it's fanaticism. So I think that we all may have little fanaticisms that we have to look at that are subtle. And as long as we're not in a fanatical state and we're doing things for the motive of serving, loving, and giving, then that kind of washes away and just disappears, I think, because we're doing things for the right motive. God looks at our motive. When you have your life review, it's not always what you did, but what you were thinking and feeling and what your motive was when you did it, that you're, quote, judged on, right? Even though it's not, God's not really, it's self-judgment, but God looks at the motive of the heart beyond, what happened, in my opinion. Do you agree with that, everybody? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because if your motive is pure and you have an accident and you hurt somebody, you didn't mean to. Maybe you could have been more attuned, and so there's a little bit of karma maybe if you hurt somebody. But if your heart was in the right place and you weren't trying to do anything negative, God sees that, and we know that. Okay, another question?
Actually, I don't know if this is really a question or just a vision of myself. When I've been praying, I just see myself. It's just like a big ball. It's a huge being, but full of atoms, multicolors, all kind of colors, even colors that we don't have here on the earth. It's radiating. But that is me. I have the feeling all this is God inside, but
That you're in your causal body when you're seeing that.
yeah,
You're in
but
your
I'm
causal
praying,
body.
yes, but but all these colors, and I said
Yeah.
this is the rainbow body
Yes.
with millions of colors.
You're in it.
Yes, I'm inside.
Experiencing it, yeah. It's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else?
I have a question about the deathless solar body. We've heard about that and the garment of light and your wedding garment, weaving your wedding garment. Is it kind of the same?
Yeah, the Merkaba, some people say Merkaba or Merkaba, is that deathless solar body or eternal light body that you weave over lifetimes through conscious presence and love, givingness, service, all that. So it's like the vehicle that you ascend within, the deathless solar body. It's not, I mean, we use the term body, but it's an energy field. So the ascended masters, when they come and I experience them, they're light, they're crystalline light. They can have, sacred geometric manifestations around them, or that they're kind of manifesting as. And their highest sense, if they don't have to come down into more of an anthropomorphic form, it's easier for them to manifest because they're light, they're pure light. They still appear to people more as like Saint Germain looks like, or Saint Germain looks like that, or Jesus looks like that, or Mother Mary. But they're beyond form and they're beyond mortality. So they're basically spirit beings of light. So it's easier for them not to have to condense down into an anthropomorphic form. So I don't experience El Moria like some people, where he just will appear to someone, 7 feet tall with the beard and looking, the way that we think he looks. I experience his energy immediately when I know it's El Moria. And telepathically, I know it's him. So I don't know. It may be different for some of you. Some of you are more visually oriented, and maybe you really rely on the visual of a being. But they're light beings and crystalline, and they're amazing. So it's more the energy. I mean, I'd rather have the energy of Jesus around me, within me, that I can experience than just physically seeing him. Because seeing can be believing, but knowing through experiential beingness, it to me is more powerful. Knowing through experiential beingness.